From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later tonight, the science of film and television. Here's what's happening. NATO is testing new sea drones that can use artificial intelligence to detect suspicious activity near underwater infrastructure. 14 members of the NATO alliance have teamed up for multiple exercises over 12 days off the coast of Portugal to test underwater sea drones that have real-time ability to send a deterrent signal to the enemy, be it Russia or somebody else. Interesting. Get ready not to freak out. On Wednesday, October 4th at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, every television, radio, and cell phone in the United States should blare out that very distinctive electronic warning tone of an emergency alert. It's a test, only a test. Officially, the trial is called the Nationwide Emergency Alert Test. You know it's a test and not an actual emergency because it's accompanied by an explanation of the test. Lauren Weinstein, our expert on the Internet, is with us. Lauren, what's the purpose for this one?
Well, the first thing to note again is that this isn't the first time these have been done, and recently they have included cell phones in these tests, as they are doing again this time. And much of the controversy with these tests does revolve around putting cell phones into the mix. Now, there's obviously logic in testing the technical infrastructure for alerts, the way you get these alerts out. On the other hand, how people are going to react to these alerts, whether their tests are real, is a whole different story. And there's quite a bit of evidence that these alerts don't always have the intended effects. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for this. First off, of course, this will only work for cell phones, for phones that happen to be turned on at the time.
Right.
Right. Beyond that, though, one obvious problem, for example, is that when you send unexpected text messages, and that's how these go out to cell phones, in some cases, perhaps with some phones with a very unusual alert tone to people who don't expect them, and in some cases perhaps don't even normally do text messaging at all, it can be very confusing to them. This is especially true if someone happens to, for example, be driving down the freeway and hears something like that and goes searching for their phone while driving to find out what's going on. You can see how that could potentially have significant negative consequences when so much effort has been made to teach people not to physically handle their phones while driving. But it gets even more complicated because, broadly, many people now simply ignore most notifications from their phones no matter where they are. And who can blame them, right, with all the spams and scam phishing texts and robocalls and everything else. Even other kinds of emergency alerts are often ignored now because they've sometimes been misused in the past. Sometimes alerts are sent out very widely when they're only really useful in a much smaller area. That has happened with Amber Alerts, for example, or using them for situations that weren't really actually emergencies rising to the level where such alerts were really intended. So it rapidly turns into a boy who cried wolf kind of situation and can definitely increase the odds that alerts are going to be ignored by more and more people. There was even a case in Hawaii some years ago when someone pushed the wrong button and an alert went out saying that there was an inbound ballistic missile.
I remember that.
Telling people to take shelter, and it included the text, "This is not a drill." And it took more than half an hour for an oops, false alarm message to go out as a follow-up. In the meantime, a lot of people were pretty scared. And that's a key aspect of all of these alerting systems. If they're overused, or used improperly, or confused with other kinds of notifications that bombard people every day now, these emergency alerts can't be relied on to necessarily have useful effects. Nor is there any obvious way I know of to easily fix this situation, so we seem to be just stuck with it for now.
So Wednesday, people should not panic.
Yeah, of course. I was talking to someone earlier today saying, boy, what would happen if on the day that there was an emergency alert test, there was an actual emergency?
Right? Oh, my God.
This is the aliens invade on the day of the War of the Worlds broadcast, right? And so that is a real, possible scenario. I think we can probably assume that's not going to happen on Wednesday, but I think we can also assume there will be people who will be startled by this and confused by it. Because a lot of people just don't know that this is coming.
There's already a buzz on the Internet, Lauren, that this could be the end of everything.
Yeah, I think that's not going to happen, but it's a complicated situation. Alerts are a very, very touchy thing because, like I said, if you can't depend on them, people will start to ignore them, and then when you really need them, they're not going to do the job.
You got it. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate your input. Once again, folks, Wednesday, October 4th at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, every radio, TV, and cell phone in the United States should blare out that very distinctive electronic warning tone that you've heard on an emergency alert. A convenience store clerk in California was severely burned when a shoplifter poured kerosene on him and set him on fire. What is going on with people? Speaking of people, here's Dr. Sky, who's got a great report for us this week. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, George. Hey, we've just a few moments. We'll begin with an update on the upcoming annular solar eclipse of Saturday, October the 14th. On the calendar, George, it's 11 days, 9 hours, and 52 minutes away, but we begin with the moon. The Indian lunar lander, the Chandrayaan-3, actually goes dark. How sad. Well, the Indian lunar lander and rover were put into the sleep mode soon after their successful soft landing near the south pole of the moon. We know this. But the Indian Space Research Organization has told us that the spacecraft and rover have now completed their tests on the moon because they're solar powered. Well, just by coincidence, a lunar day on the surface is 14 Earth days long, and messages sent to wake up the lander and the rover on September the 22nd were not successful. This location was deemed known as the Shiv Shakti Point landing site. Incredible, not necessarily at the south pole of the moon, literally, George, but some 69 degrees south latitude. We congratulate them on this amazing mission. But also closer to home, the OSIRIS-REx samples from the asteroid Bennu will be sent to 3 U.S. museums. These particles from asteroid Bennu will help us naturally understand the ways that life might have exist, that is, in the universe and around the solar system. But the interest in these particles from space will be sent to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., the Space Center Museum in Houston, and the University of Arizona's Gem and Mineral Museum. But just to talk a little bit about past history with moon rocks, asteroid rocks, when the Apollo 11 moon rocks were exhibited in New York's Museum of Natural History, some 42,000 people in a short period of time actually came to see these incredible rocks. We collected 842 moon rocks. That is 842 pounds of moon rocks from the entire Apollo mission. But, George, we saved the best for last year, the countdown to the annual solar eclipse. And that is the moment on October the 14th that many people will get to see it. The main path of the rare event will lie in a band about 135 miles wide, seen best over 6 U.S. states. People in Oregon, Nevada, Utah, parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas will be able to see this. An annular eclipse is a solar eclipse that occurs when the moon is near apogee, farthest away from us. It's too small to cover the sun like a total eclipse, and thus we get this amazing ring of fire. But you need to protect your eyes, of course, with the proper solar glasses. And a partial eclipse, George, is visible over a good portion of the United States. So how about this, George? Eclipse fans, I'll be a presenter at the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, that is, in New Mexico on Eclipse Day, and participating with Coast affiliate KIVA, Kiva, the Rock of Talk, at select events in Albuquerque, and we hope to see many of our Coast friends out there. It'll be an amazing event. We wrap it up with the live sky. The moon now at its last quarter, just about coming up here on the 6th, and only, as we mentioned before, some 11 days and change before this eclipse. For planets, Saturn is high in the southeast at sunset, but George, Jupiter now is the bright object in the east at 9 p.m. In my opinion, the best planet to view in October in a telescope, amazing sights, and you can learn so much more about all this at theskylive.com. We love emails, drskyshow@gmail.com. And what do we always say? And we certainly mean it. Always remember to keep your eyes to the skies, as I'm your navigator on the highway to the heavens. And much more details, George, on the eclipse next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sky. Looking forward to your reports, as we do every week. Up next, the miracle of our universe, a new view of consciousness, God, science, and reality, right here on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. We have 2 special guests for you tonight. We're going to begin with Marsha Sims, one of the co-authors of the book, The Miracle of Our Universe. Marsha has years of experience interfacing with business, supporting scientists in their projects, and immersing herself in the music world. She has served as an administrator and department secretary at Lockheed Martin at the Palo Alto Research Lab, executive editor of the Journal of Scientific Exploration, administrator at the California Institute for Physics and Astrophysics. Marsha, welcome to the program. Great book that you and Dr. Bernard put together.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, George. I'm so excited.
This is going to be fascinating. Tell me, how did you get involved in the miracle of our universe?
Oh, well, so Bernard, I call him affectionately Bernie, my husband, and I have been together for 36 years. And so we have a lifetime of models and ideas that we've shared together. And he has written 3 other books, and he had this 4th one that he'd been working on for 5 years. But unfortunately, after a long and successful career as an astrophysicist, he contracted Parkinson's.
Oh, no.
I know. So it made it really difficult. It was difficult for him to write and put all this together on his computer. So he asked me, hey, Marsha, do you think you could help me write this book?
I love it.
And you could have your name on it. And I know all these ideas anyway because we've been sharing them. And I thought, okay, I will do this. It was one of those times when I know it was my life's path. I'd planned to help him write this book, but at that point in time, I could have said no, but I didn't. And I got on his computer, collected all of his thoughts. He had so many electronic digital notes, and I helped him compile all of it together and organize it, and then I added some of my own material, and I wrote transitions between the chapters, and it was really fun. So the book's a lot different than it might have turned out if he had originally written it, because I'm more of an experiential person, so I put a lot of my experiences into it, and I also am more into the experiencing things from the more metaphysical side than
our kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, your kind of stuff. I'm more of a metaphysical person, let's put it that way. He's a very scholarly scientist.
Well, we'll attempt to talk to him a little bit later on tonight.
Yeah.
He'll be okay for that?
Oh, yeah. We're going to do the best we can. I'll help him if he gets really stuck. It's just, he's used to speaking. He's been on your show. This will be his 9th time.
Yeah, that's right.
Very experienced.
Right. He was with us with his book, The God Theory, Proof of God, and now we've got The Miracle of Our Universe.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the simulation hypothesis? What is that?
Well, our book is an erudite model of reality, and we're not just biological machines, but we're conscious, immortal beings who co-create a virtual reality together with a great cosmic consciousness known as God. So the root reality doesn't consist of physical stuff. The only one and only thing that does exist is consciousness and its thoughts. Our consciousness is literally a piece of God. So virtual simulation is that it's like the mind of God. And the virtual reality was thought into existence by this universal consciousness, one that is either vast beyond our wildest imagination or possibly even infinite and eternal. So,
and when you talk about God, Marsha,
yeah.
Tell me what you think God is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we kind of do an interchange between God and consciousness, or the cosmic consciousness. So we don't use God as the more mainstream type of God that is seen as a desert patriarch, where he sits on a throne with a long white beard and angels are all around him playing harps and praising his name continuously. Our God is more of a universal consciousness that arose out of the Ein Sof.
Yeah.
And this universal consciousness is not male, is not female, is not even human-like at all. It's no sex. We say God mainly because that's kind of the traditional word that's been used, our nomenclature. But really, God is a universal consciousness that's vast beyond our wildest imagination and infinite and eternal. And we believe that this virtual reality came about because God wanted to see, he was bored. He wanted to have something happen. He wanted to experience. So he booted up the universe with the Big Bang. And would you like me to tell you something about the Big Bang?
You know, I was just going to ask you, Marsha. I have had so many astrophysicists and scientists on my show, and I haven't gotten personally the explanation that satisfies me on what the Big Bang is. So have at it, my dear.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had several people ask me what the Big Bang was. So anyway, the Big Bang is how astronomers explain the way the universe began. It is the idea that the universe began as just a single point that was very, very compressed. And it was so compressed that finally it just exploded. It expanded and stretched to grow as large as it is right now, and it is still stretching. So it might surprise you that Bernie is an astrophysicist who believes in the Big Bang, but he doesn't think the Big Bang is the ultimate origin of a physical universe. The God cosmic consciousness is the ultimate origin that arose out of the Ein Sof, which is a term used in Kabbalah, which is the vast, infinite unknown.
In this vast, infinite unknown, how could it start from nothing? That's what I don't get.
Yeah, that's a hard one. You know, you get to that point, and it's like you just have to accept that there was nothing, and that's sort of an idea from the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, that there was an Ein Sof, there was nothing, and somehow God just came out of it. And I guess we just have to accept that because here we are as beings living in a universe with planets all around us and living creatures around us and, plants growing and there are galaxies and stars and, distant stars that have planets around them. And so, it's a model.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the subtitle of your book is A New View of Consciousness, God, Science, and Reality. What does consciousness mean to you, Marsha?
Well, consciousness to me means awareness. So it's just, you know who you are. You know you're George. You know you're inside your body. You know if you touch something hot or if you eat something delicious or...
I learned those the hard way.
Yeah, that's right. It's your awareness. That's really what consciousness is. And so God is consciousness. It's an awareness. And how do you define awareness? You just have to know that you're being. So that's what it is to me. Consciousness is awareness.
Have you learned how to believe in the afterlife because of this?
Yes, I have. And not only that, I had a near-death experience. So it's very real to me. And the curtain between the current physical reality, which I live in, and the other side was pulled back a bit. Would you like to hear about the story?
Yeah, I've got a couple minutes before the break. Sure, go for it.
Okay. So when I was 16 years old, I was out on the beach with my family and friends in the Santa Cruz area, and I was body surfing. And it was in the spring, and weather is kind of volatile at that time of year, usually here in California. And there were huge tides. I was body surfing, and there was this undertow that pulled me out to sea, and really pulled me out.
Oh my God! Like you're going to die, like you're going to drown. That kind of pull you out to sea?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
I was pulled way out, like probably about a quarter of a mile. To me, that's a long ways.
That's a long way.
Yeah, well, you can't stand up. And at first, I was panicking, and I was screaming for help. I could not get out of that undertow. It just wouldn't stop. And my family and friends, they, did what they could to try to rescue me. And the strangest thing, the most beautiful thing happened to me as I was being pulled out to sea. I saw the other side of the veil of death. And my ancestors came to me. And it was in a cloud of love and light, and they were all surrounding me. And they said, Marsha, it's not time for you to go right now. We're going to help you stay afloat until help comes.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's really beautiful. I saw all of them, and it was kind of a beautiful scene around them. It was more of a color of pink and light, pink light, white light, and their faces and their voices, and they all kind of joined hands under me and kept me afloat. And I was a good swimmer. I still am. I swim a lot. And I didn't even have to swim. There I was floating in a sea of love and light.
And help finally came for you. Marsha, we're going to take a short break and come back and talk with Bernie with you in just a moment. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Let me tell you a little bit about astrophysicist Bernard Haisch. He's the author of more than 130 scientific publications, co-author with his wife Marsha Sims on this book, The Miracle of Our Universe. He has held staff positions with Lockheed Martin and the University of California at Berkeley, also a scientific editor of the Astrophysical Journal for 10 years. Bernie, how you doing? How you holding up, sir?
I'm holding up just fine, thank you.
Good for you. Good for you. Boy, you've been with us for a long time, my friend.
Yes, it has been. Yeah, I think my first appearance with you was about, 9 years ago.
Absolutely. And you write a lot about the proof of God, the God theory, the miracle of our universe. What got you, I'm going to use the word spiritual for a moment. What got you so spiritual?
Well, when I was a kid going into grade school, I just developed a real love for the Catholic liturgy and all this that was available to be had. So I went into a seminary for my college year, first college year, a seminary to be priests, and left that about 5 or 6 years later to pursue a more normal technical life. I've been practiced astrophysics for more than 20 years.
Bernie, in your words, what is God?
I think God is a supreme consciousness, nothing but consciousness. That is the only thing that there is in the universe, and that includes us. Now, it sounds kind of strange at the outset to think that we may be offshoots of God, because I see that the God needs to experience his own power, his own greatness, his own enjoyment for the things that he does. And the only way to do that, let me give an example here. If God decided one morning he wanted to go ski down a mountain, because he's heard that what kind of fun. Well, he could not do that as a spirit. Spirits are not capable of skiing down mountains, but human beings are.
Sure.
And so God can put on his human being suit and have all the enjoyment that he wants. And I think everything that happens in the world is God's actions creating situations where we can make things happen. Not in a kind of puppet show way where we're subject to God saying you do this, you do that, but rather that we have a choice to make of what we want to observe or want to experience, and then that experience becomes God's part of God's reality. It's a long-winded answer, but I think it's really important that we get the idea down that God experiences himself only by creating creatures like us to do the observing. We're his
eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears. My word is exactly.
Yeah.
It truly is a miracle of our universe. Now, did we create God, or did God create us?
We both did. And in this way, what we are as human beings are little offshoots of God. We are the very same stuff, the absolutely same stuff as God, except we're a tiny bit of it, and but large enough a bit that we can live life in a universe or in a planet like ours, and derive not only satisfaction from that, but experience himself, and cause his own evolution to continue. So, in a sense, we are literally both gods. There's the big God and the little God.
We're sparks of God.
Yeah.
Oh, Bernie, is it unusual for a scientist to believe in God the way you do?
I guess it is, but it seems to make the most sense to me. We are spending an enormous amount of time and energy trying to understand what consciousness is. And I think that we need to put that aside as a view that we have consciousness as being one thing and questions. What do we do?
What he's trying to say, he's talking about the official position of the National Academy of Science, and how it interacts with spirituality. Religions and science answer different questions about the world, whether there is a purpose to the universe or a purpose for human existence. Those are not questions for science, because science is a way of knowing about the natural world. Science can say nothing about the supernatural, and whether God exists or not is a question about which science is neutral. So this is right and encouraging because it recognizes the distinct spheres in which science and religion operate without declaring them incompatible. So that's how Bernie can be a spiritual scientist, because he can put on his science hat when he does his astrophysics, and then when he's thinking about God, he puts on his metaphysical, spiritual side hat.
So apologies, a minute ago I was talking about some of this, and I had a bit of a bubble, little step in my presentation, and it's this Parkinson's, which bothers me somewhat, but doesn't keep me off the street. I still have a lot of things to do, and I'm doing them.
Yeah. That's okay.
You keep fighting the good fight on that, Bernie, and maybe one day they'll come up with a cure for this stupid disease, huh?
Really.
Yeah, he's very courageous, George. I'm really proud of him for all the work he's doing, and
but I don't always quite find the right word, but it'll. Anyway, I'm so glad to be doing what I'm doing. Next question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The universe. Are you a believer, Bernie, in the multiverse theory?
No, I detest it. Because
how come?
I really do, because in a related experiment that was proposed by Everett, we have universes coming out of nowhere. Well, where is this going to stop? Unless it's absolutely internal, then possibly there you have multiverses. But I really think it's really so counter to the notion of what the basic things are in science that, it makes sense, and I'm still kind of rumbling.
Well, it's all, as I understand it, because he's explained it to me, multiverses really are mathematical constructs that nobody can really prove that they're there, because we could not exist in them to witness it.
Right, you couldn't go there because they're...
Yeah, because they're not the same kind of dimensions, yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting mathematical work. It could be just a bunch of calculations and somebody just having fun with math. So,
how did the ancients, Bernie, understand this belief of God much better than we did today?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't have any ancients on my friendship list, but I can ask. But
what do you mean by the ancients believing in God more than we do?
God arose in many civilizations.
I mean, old-time shamans and people like that. They seem to have a belief system that was spot on, I think.
It is. And the other thing is that the enormous number of near-death experiences that we have, are most easily interpreted as being really what happened. And that really what happened is all self-consistent, pretty much when someone has had such a thing and has come to see what the afterlife is like. And by the way, I do believe strongly in the afterlife. So I think the origin of religions throughout the ages has come from the experience of people. They have...
I think that what you're trying to get at, George, is the ancients were more attuned to nature, and they weren't so tied up in our technical, busy world of do this and do that, and get troubleshooting your electronics daily so you can make your life happen. I mean, they were really living with the earth and feeling the nature's spirits around them.
And all they had, because they didn't have all this technology that we have, is all they had was their brain to think.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to have experiences. I'm really taking to heart the experiences that are had by the near-death people, because it's just far too much to be just random. Different types of explanations that would rule that out. No, there are thousands and thousands of such cases, and they are remarkably well documented now. So this I think is the opening door to the afterlife, and that's why I put so much interest and stock in trying to understand what people see and experience when they die, and it's just the most amazing experiences that. Well, I urge you to read up on it. Really has yeah.
Well, Eben Alexander wrote a really wonderful book about proof of heaven. I don't know if
Eben's been on the show, yeah.
Yeah. His book is amazing. It's his journey into the afterlife after he was practically clinically dead. I mean, he was in a coma for something like 8 days. And so his near-death experience really seems quite convincing that there's a life beyond this physical realm. And then we were also really good friends with Professor Ian Stevenson from the University of Virginia, and he spent much of his life studying cases of children who claimed to remember past lives. And he claimed emotions and memories and even physically bodily features could be transferred from one life to the other.
You remember the story, Marsha, of James Leininger?
Yeah,
the little boy who was a World War II pilot in another life.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say something about that. Starting at the age of 2 or 3, he started remembering the past life of James Houston, who was an American pilot who was shot down in World War II by the Japanese in the Pacific Ocean. And he had memories of the aircraft carrier and the attack that killed him and last names of friends on the ship. And he even went to a reunion from the sailors who had been on the ship, and he met his friend that he remembered from the ship. And this friend confirmed that his Leiningers, as you pronounce it, I'm not sure how it is, his memories of Houston were correct, which is quite amazing.
And the little kid knew that when the plane, this was during World War II now, when the plane landed on the aircraft carrier, it would blow it's tires.
Yeah.
And he brought that up, and nobody knew that because they tried to keep that a secret. It's just an amazing story.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the miracle of our universe, what is the miracle?
Okay. Where do you want to take that?
Well, the miracle is that we share God's reality, that we are God. I mean, literally, we are God, but on a smaller scale. And I think that's miraculous.
It truly is. It's remarkable, to be sure. What do you say to people, Bernie and Marsha, who do not believe in a God?
You know, I think that God doesn't give a hoot as far as my thinking is God does not give a damn about that. As long as, after all, if he is sort of putting himself out into the universe through reincarnation and so on, then he would be, we and he are literally the very same stuff.
Now, we believe that there's evil out there, but do we believe in Satan and the devil?
I don't really like that.
Well, we don't believe that there's a hell, actually, because hell is supposedly an infinite, eternal place where somebody who committed a transgression would be sent and would be having to suffer for eternity. But our lives are finite, and if we commit a transgression or something evil, it's not infinite. I mean, there's a law of karma. So, I mean, the law of karma, the negative karma, can be paid off. So that person would have to experience negative karma for a while, but eventually he would be able to get out of it. And also, there's another reason why we don't believe in a hell, and that reason is because we are sparks of God. And if God were to send one of us to hell, he'd be sending part of himself to hell, and that's very illogical, right?
You would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so.
So, I mean, we believe that you can understand about the existence of God through the allegory. You can't scientifically prove that God exists, but you can understand that he exists by allegory. It's sort of like if you love somebody and they tell you they love you, how do you know that they really love you? You can't measure it in a test tube, right?
No, you can't. But why do bad things happen to good people?
Well, I think
that's a good one.
It's not that there's any pre-planned effort to make somebody suffer in a given lifetime. So it's just it's statistics, basically. You know, that if we live multiple lives, I guess it brings me back to reincarnation. I think reincarnation is the thing that holds the glue together of this model of reality. But if you have multiple lives, then some of them are going to be good and some are going to be bad. And things that may seem absolutely horrible in this lifetime, from our perspective now, will look like something very different then. And so that's the reason I believe that we have amnesia that takes us over when we are born, so that we can't remember our previous life or lives.
Right.
They're off limits to us. And that's a good thing, because if we had knowledge of those lives, we wouldn't be able to act independently. And it's that independent existence, this free will, that is all purposeful. I mean, that's the whole desire of God in creating such a system, is that it makes things, it gives you a blank slate for any life that you come into, and that will give you the opportunity then to experience the most amazing number of things, which will be probably something that even God himself would take into himself as evolution for that happening.
I would like to just say that we have two main ideas why bad things might happen to good people. And I actually was given this question by my chiropractor. He said, if you're going to write this book, I want you to answer, why do bad things happen to good people?
Hold that thought, Marsha, because we'll ask you that when we come right back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Why do bad things happen to good people? And we'll take calls next.